And then switching gears a little bit and coming back to the history that you shared around your involvement with the badging community and perhaps one of the OG members, given you've been following it and participating in it for what since the last 15 years or so. Um, so you and learning agents help organizations on their own journeys to deploy open badges, digital credentials. Um, how does that work? Do people get it? What challenges do people face from the organization and then also the recipients?
Well, I mean, you get a lot of variation. There still needs to be more awareness. I think you get the people who think of them as pretty pictures, stickers. There you
Yeah,
go. That's great. They don't really think about the metadata that's inside them. I think uh, there's a chance to tell a story inside a badge, and it doesn't have to be a long story. It should be a compelling story, and there should be evidence to back that story up, right? In the form of either a good narrative and the endorsement or actual direct evidence. Um, then there are the people who go in the other direction. It has to be, rigor, quality. It has to be, accredited, etc.
yeah,
And I think that is, again, that's a piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole puzzle. So you can have that, but you need more. So between those two poles, sometimes people get their account and somehow they're stuck.
yeah. Okay,
It's
right, right.
the blank page syndrome. So a lot of what we do is we're kind of known for helping people get started. So we'll set up the account for them. We'll populate it with model badges, so badge templates that are based on a flexible recognition framework that we've developed over the years, working with
Right.
clients such as ILO, Inter-American Development Bank, and others. And so there'd be certifications, there'd be
Mm.
micro-credentials, but there'd also be webinars or self-paced courses where you could bang away at the answers until you get them. Or somewhere in the middle could be applied learning, learning in the workplace, work internships, work-based learning, assembling evidence packages, and maybe those are evaluated, maybe those aren't. So what we can give people is a collection of these things as starting points that they can say, oh, okay, I see how to get started now. Even if they change them, they've
Right.
actually got it's a stick in the sand, something they can start with.
Brilliant. And and I think you partially answered this already, but do organizations um, tend to have challenges around the durable skills, or is that easier for them, or the more concrete? You mentioned technical skills around SAP or any other technology versus some of these durable or human skills might be a little bit harder to quantify.
Yeah. So durable skills, they're the most important according to people like World Economic Forum,
Hmm.
and they're the hardest to assess, they're the hardest to develop, they're the hardest to move out of the original context, right? So, and back in the early days, a lot of people were, developing these little self-paced courses on communication or teamwork or whatever, and how much would be retained by anybody from that? It's very much a cookie cutter approach, and it's where we're trying to get people to go is to think in terms of what an employer would want. Employer wants to know that you're not a psycho, that you're going to
Can I
show
get a
up
badge
on
for that,
time.
please, Don? Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
You're going to show up on time. You're going to have a certain amount of resilience. You're going to be able to solve problems, but also not be afraid to reach out and ask others and help others. And how do they get at that? Is it courses? You have these courses on it. That wouldn't really impress me very much. It's more about demonstration that you've done it.
Yeah.
So that's, one of the reasons I'm excited working with Skills Aware, for example, is that has tons of examples that somebody can start tweaking on and start pulling events out of their past. So it's like a friend of mine says, it's not what you know, it's what you can think of in time. what
Yeah.
what ideally, if you can prepare some of these stories in advance for those kinds of behavioral interviews, or what do they call them? Prospective interviews, or what do they call those? Where you something in the future. I was
Sorry.
just looking
Yeah.
that up.
Yeah. Well, and that really dovetails with that market research that I flagged earlier. That most graduates just they don't have that vocabulary. They don't have that language of their own skills. Um, and certainly when you put a socioeconomic lens on it, or other factors that make it even more challenging if someone hasn't grown up hearing that sort of language of verbal skills and teamwork, collaboration or leadership, critical thinking. So that is part of our collective challenge. So yeah, wonderful to hear what you're doing in that regard.